Good day, everybody. Now we are going to look at extra credit question number 6, which reads, a car company believes that the percentage of residents in a city ABC that owns a vehicle is 60% or less. A sales manager disagrees with this. He conducted a hypothesis test surveying 250 residents and found out that 170 people or 170 residents out of the 250 residents responded yes to owning a vehicle. And there are two parts of the question. The first question says, or part A says, state the null and alternative hypotheses. And part 2, or part B says, at a 10% significance level, is there enough evidence to support the idea that the vehicle ownership in city ABC is 60% or less? So as always, please take about 10 to 20 seconds and see if you can approach this on your own, and please pause the video and I will be back with a solution in a few minutes or seconds. Okay, so hopefully you are able to approach this on your own. If not, let's look at this together. So part A talks about asks us to state the null and alternative hypotheses, and the null hypotheses, or H naught here, should be the percentage of residents in city ABC that own a vehicle is 60% or less. The alternative hypothesis, or HA, on the other hand, is or should be the percentage of residents in city ABC that own a vehicle is more than 60%, because the sales manager disagrees with the original statistic. And we're going to test that. So the part B, or next part of the question, asks, at a 10% significance level, is there enough evidence to support the idea that the vehicle ownership in city ABC is 60% or less? So let's start off, as always, with analysis of what we are given. So far, from reading the question stem, we know that we are given the sample size, or total residents in the neighborhood, which is N, and the value is 250 residents. We're also given the number of residents who own a vehicle, which is X, and that happens to be 170 or 170. Then the next value that is given is hypothesized population proportion, which is P naught, and that is at 0.60 or 60%. And last but not least, we are also given the significance level of alpha, and the value is at 10%, which will be 0.10. So to determine if there is enough evidence to support the null hypotheses, we need to calculate the test statistic, or the z-score, and compare the p-value to the significance level, or the value of alpha. And depending on if it is more or less than alpha, we would be able to reject or fail to reject the hypotheses, especially the null hypotheses. So to start off, our first step should be to calculate the test statistic, or the z-score, and z is calculated as x, or in the numerator, sorry, within parentheses, x over n minus p naught, and the whole thing is in parentheses, and we divide that by the denominator, which is the square root of this whole value within parentheses, and the value is p naught times 1 minus p naught, and this whole value is divided by n. So when and then we close the parenthesis, the entire value is within the parenthesis, like I mentioned before. And I have taken electronic notes, so hopefully it's better to see, and you are able to see the formula that I've written down instead of my handwritten work, which is sometimes a little bit challenging to follow, especially with camera angles and all those things. And hopefully leveraging technology, you're able to follow this up, my work, a little bit better. So to resume, we will plug and chug the values that we were able to find from the question earlier. So then we'll see that z equals in numerator within parentheses 170 divided by 250 minus 0.60, and this will be divided by the denominator of the square root of this whole value. 0.60 times 1 minus 0.60 divided by 250, or 0.60 times 0.40 divided by 250, as when you subtract 0.60 from 1 you should get 0.4. And when you solve this, the z value that you should get is 2.58. And once you get the z value of 2.58, we have to find the p-value using the z-score. That's the next step in the problem. And for theory, for this problem, the p-value represents the probability of obtaining a test statistic at least as extreme as one observed, given that the null hypothesis here is true. So we have two options again. We can either use a z-table or a calculator, and the p-value for one-tailed test with the value of z being 2.58 should be approximately 0.0049. And please feel free to check my work, but the values I believe are correct. Then, after we have solved all of this, we are able to do the analysis for our final step, which is comparing the p-value to the significance level. And once we solved earlier, we found that the p-value of 0.0049 is less than the significance level of, or the alpha value of 0.10. We have enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis at the 10% significance level. So, to summarize, or the final answer for us, we can conclude by saying that there is enough evidence to support the idea that the vehicle ownership in city ABC is more than 60%. So turns out that the sales managers was correct. I hope you have learned something from this extra credit question number 6, and thank you so much for taking the time to review the video presentation today. Have a good day.